Welcome to Safety Unlocked, the podcast for all things workplace safety and OSHA compliance, brought to you by Exceed Safety. Join Tim Neubauer and our team of seasoned professionals as they explore the latest developments in safety. On today's episode, Tim and Jennifer Lastra talk about prevention through design, what happens to OSHA when the government shuts down, protecting your eyes and ears, and how to adapt training and workplaces for visual and auditory impairments. Your journey toward a safer tomorrow starts right now.
Okay, so I was on a podcast yesterday, fun fact, with a risk management company, which was really fascinating. He's starting out podcasting. And I guess I didn't realize, or maybe saying this differently, that most online training doesn't actually include like hierarchy of controls. It talks about hazards, but it doesn't teach learners, even at a foundation level, about the control mechanisms.
Sure.
And I just caught me off guard because I was like, and why not? And so just super quick. And we were also talking about how our training is unique in the sense that we do scenario based, even in the e-learning. You know, we'll cover a topic for 2 minutes and then give a likely scenario you may find in a construction or a warehouse environment that applies the learning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And he was like, that's just not very common. So forget the VR and all that stuff, but I thought it was interesting.
Well, in the hierarchy control, the most common one is giving them PPE. So the analogy that I always like is, hey, it's really loud in here. Put on hearing protection. That's, rather than saying, why is it so loud?
Right.
Can we isolate it? Can we move the machine? Can we work farther away from it? Nobody does problem solving because the lowest common denominator is put on hearing protection, and nobody thinks through the hierarchy of controls. And I'll give you a couple of great examples. I had a client, and they had a lot of backing incidents. They kept backing into things, and they were really big trucks. And so they decided to solve that by doing ground guides, and it didn't help at all. So somebody back there say, don't hit me, didn't work. So then they went to cameras, and they put cameras in, and it didn't work. And the reason why is they put the screen for the camera, it blocked the bubble mirror you need to drive this big truck down the road. So the guys would just tilt the camera up, and then they put their soda on top of it, and then it would spill, and then the screen wouldn't work anymore. And so when you talk about hierarchy of controls, when you develop or you identify a problem, you have to go back and say, what's the real root cause, and how can we solve it before it ever gets in the employee's hands? Because the common denominator is the employees took every solution and figured out a way to break it, and in the end, the solution was this. They replaced their trucks every 3 years. So before the whole fleet, 1/3 every year. Okay, that was just the way their business was. So I said, next year, order the cameras with them already in the back, order them with the sensors in it, and the screen is in the dash. You won't have that problem anymore. And I said, in 3 years, the problem will be solved. And within 3 years, as soon as you replace that fleet, and it just kept solving the problem. But literally, the hierarchy of control starts before the worker ever is exposed to the event. Can you do the job differently?
Mm-hmm.
I had a case where we were doing these prefab building where you'd stand up like a 3-story tall building. And it blew their mind when I said, can we put the guardrails across the window openings when the wall's laying down? So the second you stand it up and you put a floor in there, you've got a guardrail in. And it's like, that's thinking ahead. But so many times we play whack-a-mole, which was a lunch and learn we did last week. And stop playing whack-a-mole, Think about things months and months in advance. Because once you figure that out, then the hierarchy of control gets really easy. And I always like to say that the engineering is the least involving the worker and the most effective. PPE involves the worker the most and is the least effective.
So is training one of the administrative controls, right?
Right.
Okay, that's where that falls.
But when you look at, like, there's elimination. Do I have to do the job? Then there is substitution. Do I need to use that chemical? And then you get engineering controls, which basically covers all of the stuff I just discussed. in those top 3 of the tier, the problem is actually solved. The hazard is no longer there. And when you get to administrative control, and I'm going to pick on all the administrative controls, okay? So one of the administrative controls is make a rule. The rule is if you fall, you're fired before you hit the ground. It doesn't stop me from falling, right? And then so that is basically rules, regulations, procedures. Then you got to train. I'm going to train you to fall gracefully, but it's not going to keep you from falling. It identifies the hazard. Job rotation, limiting your exposure to the edge, or doing flips before you hit the ground so it looks cool. But so what administrative control do? It makes you aware of the hazard and limits your exposure to the hazard, but it does nothing to solve the problem. Even putting a sign up that says next step's a biggie. You're trusting the employee to follow the procedure, follow the training, read the sign, and not do the act. And I hate to pick on it, but it's the hazard is still there in all of its evilness.
Until you get to engineering controls.
Right. And PPE, I mean, you're basically asking,
you're putting a Band-Aid.
Well, it's like, I hope you wear it. I hope you know the limitations.
Yeah.
And I hope it's a good working order. I always try to go back and say fall protection is one of my favorite ones. That I hope you inspect your harness. I hope you wear it, and I hope you tie it off to the right thing. Because, I mean, how many times does somebody say, hey, Bubba, hold my beer, watch this, and then they do something stupid and the PPE doesn't work, During the Vietnam War, the military gave flak jackets to the soldiers. And the soldiers painted the Superman logo on the chest. They ran through the jungle and they got shot. And the jacket didn't stop the bullets. And the soldiers complained that the bulletproof vest sucked. And the Army said they're not bulletproof, they're flak. Flak is a regular shaped, low velocity projectile, like a hand grenade or a claymore, where a bullet's very regular shaped and very high velocity. But they never trained them the difference. So when I was east of here in the sandbox playing many decades ago, I sat on my flak jacket and wore my bulletproof vest. But they didn't train them.
Right.
So yeah, hierarchy of controls is a very challenging situation.
Definitely. Yeah, and we were trying to figure out kind of in real time. It was that type of podcast where we were talking in real time. How could we use training more effectively as an admin control to help with the engineering controls so that workers are more engaged of identifying in their own respective environments and workplaces where are the backup potentials, what are the things that lead to the accidents and in your scenario, and how do we get learners more engaged during safety training to have those more candid conversations of what's going on in their environment?
So training needs to me, the most effective training would be training you the hierarchy of controls, and then let them do the problem solving. And this isn't the format to talk about politics, but we've stopped teaching children critical thinking many years ago. And so the workforce isn't thinking critically. They're looking at, give them PPE. They're not looking at it and saying, what is the solution to this? Prevention through design, thinking about things way, way, way in advance.
Right.
When you're actually saying, hey, you're going to be doing this shutdown in the plant, that you start saying, hey, this plant shutdown is occurring during Christmas. What are some of the hazards? How can we fix them before the shutdown? What equipment do I need? What manpower do we need? What are some of the problems? Do I need to spray paint, or can I get it in a liquid form so I can brush it on? I don't need a respirator. These are things you need to consider months in advance. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, they're always safety is an afterthought. It's an add-on. It's a bolt-on. When it should be part of the process. So what do you think about this? One of our topics we want to talk about is, what does a government shutdown mean for OSHA and other safety-related incidents?
Well, I don't exactly know how I know how OSHA consultation is impacted. They're all furloughed. And so my opinion, and I'm not savvy enough to know I haven't heard anything. I only know about OSHA consultation and their impact. And that just automatically is a detriment for small businesses that use that resource for counseling and support.
So the compliance officers are actually running on skeleton staff and usually the supervisors during this time. And so they're responding when the need is there, such as an event, a negative event happens, but they're not driving up down the road looking for things. And we still have a bunch of states that are using state programs, and those programs are not affected at all. So I would have to say the impact of the government shutdown on OSHA is fairly minimal at this point. Obviously, the consultative assistance stuff, but their managers are still there. They're just not able to, respond in global things. So
yeah, and again, here we're talking about them being in just a purely reactive format, which is not very helpful. not popular, not optimal, and not very helpful.
I always say I'm not the ambulance chaser, but the more citations are right, the more phone calls I get saying help Tim. So
no, and I really can appreciate that. Somebody's got to step in and give the support where it's needed and the corrective action and all of that.
Right.
Because I don't know. So, I'm still one of those people that's like, what happens if OSHA goes away?
They're not going away.
You say they are or they're not?
Are not. That has been a recent battle cry. And I recently met with the top enforcement person for North Carolina, who is very much in tune with the Washington D.C. Thing. So we have the Commissioner of Labor, and then his top enforcement person has been in that role for decades and decades. And I had a very long conversation with him in his office, freewheeling every topic you can imagine. And when that came up, there is some philosophical differences. I'm painting a picture with a brush, it's a mile wide. Okay. During one party's administration, the head of OSHA is generally an engineer. And during another party, they're generally environmental hygienist. It's just two different schools of thought. These are still safety professionals running the Department of Labor, okay, and OSHA. Currently, we're in the engineer phase, and engineers are really big on what does the data say, and here's what we're going to do. So they are looking at how are people getting hurt and killed, and that's where we need to focus training and enforcement. And they said training first and then enforcement. They're not going away. They just have a different focus. When there's industrial hygienists, they are very big about constant contact with companies and workers and identify maximum number of observation points. And we end up with a lot of citations and a lot of fines and a lot of touch points where the engineers are methodical. We're going to look at everybody who works at height. So it's just a change. And we went through this, almost every administration has this kind of a flip in there. And if you know that one philosophy is massive inspections, the other one's targeted inspections. There's still the same number of compliance officers.
Right.
They're just very focused on one thing rather than stuff in general. No downsizing, no getting rid of kind of stuff is what I'm hearing. So
well, that at least sounds optimistic.
What are we in October here when we're recording this? I have not seen any downtick in inspections or citations in the last 10 months. Not even a little bit.
Yeah, aren't the new injuries and fatality metrics supposed to be coming out here like momentarily?
Yes. Now that is something to be concerned about because the injury and incident is managed by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and they have recently had a transition at their top level. I don't think they've ever replaced that person, and they have had their budget slashed, and they are under some budgetary constraints. So, and they are shut down. So yeah, so the statistics, which already lagged behind tremendously, are going to be even slower coming forward. So
yeah, I was just thinking about that one.
A troubling trend is these school and church shootings. And most people, when they look at that, the teachers, the administrators, the janitors, the people who are actually work at these facilities, that's workplace hazard.
Yeah.
And when you start looking and saying, what are the solutions? It's pretty complicated. I've been warned that I can't talk about a recent shooting in any way, shape, or form, but that person died in the workplace at work.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, they have to fill out the OSHA 300 log. They had to report that to OSHA as a workplace death.
Right.
And these school shootings, the students aren't at work, but the employees are. So the reason I draw that loose line is you have to, going back to the hierarchy of control, you have to do something to assess the hazard and come up with a solution. Isn't that when you can wrap that into the workplace?
Workplace
You know,
violence.
there was, yeah. Well, there was it's probably about 20 years now, auto parts store. Don't even throw a name out because they're pretty sensitive about it. But they had a location where they had an armed security guard inside the store. And that security guard was shot and killed during a robbery, which he was there to prevent against. And the family sued and got a tremendous amount of money because they knew what the hazard was, and their solution, hierarchy of control,
Was
their
to hire.
solution was to put an armed guard in the store when, after it was all said and done, the solution was you shut the store down at sundown because that's when the crime occurred, or you close that location because the neighborhood was simply too dangerous. You know, they chose in this case, the administrative control of placing people in a position to try and deter it, you know. So all this
That's
stuff goes back to
interesting.
workplaces. It is.
Yeah. Well, and then the employer's responsibility to keep their workforce safe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And do whatever you need to know what the hazard is, identify the hazard, and plan for the
Use
hazard.
the hierarchy of control and say,
Yeah.
this, you know, and I get yelled at that I can't talk about this stuff, but I said, it's the workplace.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, last month we had September 11th, which, by the way, in my head, I just thought was literally last Tuesday. And here it is, we're in October. So it's, I'm with you on the year going by so fast. But September 11th, there was a company that had 90+% of their employees killed tragically in the World Trade Centers. Their OSHA 300 log had a 95% fatality. Hundreds of employees died. You know, to say that how those companies had to report that stuff. And when you look at the 2001 statistics, they are skewed dramatically because it's the world of September 11th. On the airplanes, it's a little different. The flight attendants, the pilots, they were at work. Everybody else, even if you were flying for work, don't count.
Right.
But the pilot and the flight attendants do. So next time you fly, Jen, and your bag's too big getting overhead, you can't lift it up. You know these people, right? And you wonder why the flight attendants won't help you.
Because of ergonomics. They get injured, right?
They're not on the clock until the door closes. And if they hurt their back putting your bag up there, it's not workers' comp.
Yep.
Their own back.
Yeah.
So you know, they don't want to take that risk because the airlines don't typically pay flight attendants until the door is closed. So the whole boarding process is free work.
Wow. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Pay the whatever $25 and check your darn bag. So
it's not 25. If it was, people wouldn't be trying to throw their elbow in their whole body into getting that thing up there. And the guy next to you, it's 75 a bag.
Protect Your Hearing Month. Being a veteran, both of us on here, any lagging issues from being in the military and loud noises?
Not for me. I was a shipboard electrician, and so we had to have double hearing protection. But my husband was a gunner's mate, and he has hearing loss. So yeah, it's a real thing for sure.
I have almost completely deaf in my left ear, which makes sleeping at night very nice because I just roll over, leave my left ear up, and there's nothing happening. And I'm thankful it's not tinnitus. But
yeah,
when I was a young Marine and my job was a marksmanship instructor, so I did 5 days a week on the firing line, 50+ weeks a year. And my coworkers said, don't wear hearing protection because when Marines get off the firing line to shoot somebody, they mumble before they go crazy. That was the logic in the early 80s. And my boss said, you will wear hearing protection or I'll put my foot up your backside so far your kid will come out crying.
Yeah.
So how do you solve that problem? Well, the shooters are on my left side, my boss is on the right side. So I wore hearing protection in my right ear. And 4 years later, when I went to re-enlist, they said, did you know you're almost completely deaf in your left ear? And I said, what? I mean, really, what?
What? Must have been standing on your left side, huh?
Yes.
On top of it. I think about hearing protection, and this is the thing that I will say. People don't understand all of the things that lead up. We're not just talking about firing weapons and things like that. We're talking about mowing your lawn. I mean, going to events, right?
In the front row of your favorite rock star concert.
I mean, it's just, but the continuous exposure to high decibels. I just don't think, especially young people, people playing their music really loud in their car. I don't think that people understand how that compounds over time and the impact that it has when you start to lose your hearing and how disconnected you become from conversations and the difficulties that are associated with fully understanding human conversation and being able to connect with somebody, and the repercussions on relationships are really impactful, and it really starts to show up with age. And
so I have a friend who's about 10 years older than me, and I'm kind of on that tipping point where I like to think I'm not old, but I am, but he's 10 years older, so therefore he is old. And he has had some age-related hearing loss, and I never realized how much my wife and family compensate for my hearing loss. So for instance, walking up to a restaurant table, they will position themselves so I will sit where the waitress has to approach me from the right. They do this. And when the waitress is speaking to me, they will automatically repeat what she said to me without me ever asking, what was that? And so they've compensated. But going back to my friend, what really started happening is it was too much logistics because he has bad hearing in one ear and I have bad. So we had to position ourselves so we could hear each other talk, which caused the wives to have to circle around. I mean, logistically, it was a nightmare to talk. And that's when I really started becoming aware that my wife and family had been compensating for me, and I had no idea.
Well, and I think it limits your ability to have in otherwise noisy environments to be able to even put yourself out there where you don't go to events because it's too noisy and you're not going to be able to hear, and then you're going to be like, what? And then you're getting into people's personal space. And, nobody wants to do that. And as a business owner, I mean, if you can't be at a trade show event or something to that effect, or speaking and people are coming up and asking questions, it can be very, make things really complicated. So I'm like,
on that logic, if I want to go out to the club and have fun, we can't have any music and it has to be very well lit.
Exactly.
So I can hear people talk.
And you can see their lip, their mouth and everything.
And it has to open up at 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'm done by 7 p.m.
Bedtime.
Yes. Let's see here. We have Eye Injury Prevention Month, talking about your dog with the detached retina. About 3.5, 4 years ago, I was out in Arizona. I'd flown to Arizona, and for our listeners who've never been to Arizona, it's hotter than Hades. I mean, it is. It's people say it's a dry heat. I said, so is your oven. Nobody hangs out when you're baking a pizza. And I was in this new warehouse, and they had, even though there's no humidity, they had just poured a concrete floor in this building, so concrete shedding on the water. So it really was 120 with 100% humidity. I mean, and I started seeing little blue spots in front of my eyes, and I'm thinking, oh, I haven't hydrated enough. So I'm pounding water, go back to my hotel room, Google the symptoms, dismiss everything, and say it's dehydration. Pound water all night. Next day, I'm out in the middle of the desert, blazing hot sun. I still see some more of that stuff. And I go back and I Google again, and I dismiss all the symptoms because it says see a doctor. That's what it said. When you see blue spots, and I'm going to tell you what those blue spots are in a second, but it says see a doctor. And all I can think of is I go to a doctor in Phoenix, and he says you can't fly. I'm going to be stuck in Phoenix for 7, 10, 14, 30 days. And I don't want to be in Phoenix for 30 days during July. So So I ignore all that and I fly home, and it's like I get home on Thursday night, Friday morning, and my wife said, "Go see the doctor." I said, "I'm not going to go see the doctor on a Friday afternoon. No, don't worry about it." And she had left on Saturday morning, and I was on my laptop and caught a nap and on my lap. You know how Saturday mornings work, to do a little work, watching TV. But the third time I woke up, I was completely blind in my left eye. And I'm talking blank. The light bulb is out, completely blind. So what do? You drive down to the urgent care, because I'm not going to go to the emergency room. And they say, go to the emergency room across the street. And they say, "Would you like a helicopter to fly you to the Duke Eye Trauma Center?" And I'm like, "Do you know how much a helicopter costs to fly in? Don't worry about it." So knowing that I had a detached retina, I drove myself the 40 miles to the emergency room. Now, Jen, I stepped up big time, because when I pulled in, they say valet parking in the ER. And I'm like, "I'll pay for valet park." Now, I'd called my wife. She didn't answer the phone. My kids weren't available. So I went in there and they said, "You need emergency surgery. You completely detach your retina." So by the time my wife got there, I was already getting wheeled back into surgery over there. But as an end result of my pig-headedness, I have a floating cloud in my left eye. And I kind of ignore it. But going back to little spots, have you ever seen little spots in your eyes floating around?
Yeah.
Those are free floating blood. And that is a sign that there's something leaking inside of your eye. You need to go see a doctor right away. And your retina is like wallpaper, and it's stuck to the back of your eyeball. And when it pulls out a little bit of blood, and eventually everybody has a detached retina, but if you lay down and relax and rest your eyes, it generally will heal itself. I did not. I literally spent 6 days ignoring all the symptoms. So when we talk about eye safety, when you go blind, I can save you a lot of money in your car insurance, because you don't need a car.
You don't need to drive anymore. It's not even a problem.
You don't need a big screen TV. That 12-inch black and white tube, that works just fine. You can't tell the difference anyways.
Oh, man.
They do give you a cool German Shepherd, though.
I used to have one that would love to chase me when I was a little kid. The next door neighbor had one and would chase me to the mailbox and back and just nip at my heels. It was the scariest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. And to me, that was Cujo.
Our female shepherd, Missy, her name was Artemis, goddess of the hunt, protector of children. And when she would nip or tear one of the kids' pants in the neighborhood, the parents would come over and say, "What did my kid do?" And chances are they're doing something they shouldn't have done.
Right.
She grabbed one kid by the butt and pulled him and threw him down because he was running out in the road. And he kept running out the road like taunting cars, and she'd had enough of it. And, so she had free reign of all the young people around her house, and the parents were very much aware that she took her job serious. But we had snow, and we had a really steep hill in the backyard, and we had to lock her up because the kids weren't allowed to go fast. So if you sled down the hill, she would run up and block you, and then you'd collide into her. So
yeah, because you're going too fast.
Yeah, so we had to lock her in the house when the kids were sledding.
Oh gosh. That's
safety dog before safety dog.
I love it. I don't know. What else can I add to an eye injury? Nobody wants to wear a patch over their eye because they lost their vision, or they let something,
Halloween is cool to dress up as a pirate.
That's about it.
And then after that, it's it's a real buzzkill. So yeah, I couldn't imagine. Think about this. When you were a little kid and you could walk, you had freedom and you could run. And then you got a bicycle and you had real freedom. You could actually leave the property, go down the road. And then you got a driver's license. And you could do what you want, where you want, when you want, how you want. You can't drive. You literally have to ask someone else to take you everywhere you go. You have rolled the clock back to 3 years old. Somebody says, "Hey, I don't want to go to the store right now," or "Hey, I don't want to go shopping right now," and you're stuck. I mean, you might Uber it for a while, but going blind takes away all of your freedom, German Shepherd or not.
No kidding. I mean, and I see that in my own pet, my dog who lost her sight. She's a different animal now, completely different, very dependent, always anxious, she happens to be deaf now as well also, but it's the care that she requires is 10x. I honestly, and she's the time, the care, the just needing to even comfort her more doctor visits. I mean, it's just, there's so many things that we can do. I don't know how you prevent it in animals. I have no idea. I think this was more genetic than not. Nothing that we know of happened, obviously, but There are so many things, and we go back to hierarchy of controls. What are we doing in our spaces to not just protect our hearing, but also protect our vision? And I remember it being in shipbuilding, and it's hot as Hades, in Virginia, in new construction, surrounded by steel, and it is ridiculously hot. And all you want to do is take your hard hat off and your safety glasses off, because just everything extra just feels hot. And it just takes one particle, one spur, one anything, and you're in trouble.
People with blue eyes,
hello,
was raising her hand,
present,
are more susceptible to eye injuries from the sun.
That is so strange.
So when you see your optometrist and they say, "Oh, you got blue eyes," always wear safety glasses or sunglasses.
Yep.
Because you are more susceptible to sunlight. So.
Not only that, do you go every single year and get your eyes tested?
I do. Family history of glaucoma. I want to make sure I'm not on that track and that I'm in it.
But if you've had 20/20 vision, as you begin to age, that starts to deteriorate. And just because you have 20/20 vision, you still have to go get your eyes checked every single year. And people don't do it. And it's typically part of their insurance. And people still don't take advantage of those benefits. It's fascinating to me.
Well, I do it every year, but I don't replace my glasses every year because usually the prescription's so small.
The shift.
Yeah, the shift. So I say, and then what I'll do is I replace my prescription safety glasses one year, then my regular glasses. So, and this is a wild year for me this year because I actually decided to get long distance glasses without the bifocal. So I have one set is long distance and one set is bifocal because I have a hobby where I need to look through a lens at a long distance. And the bifocals were really messing me up. So, now I carry two different sets of glasses with me, and it's a strange thing.
Any thoughts about the use of contacts in the workplace paired with safety glasses? Anything anybody needs to be paying attention to, or especially around heat?
The use of contacts anytime there's something liquid or gas in your eyes you should not do it. You should switch to your glasses. My strong recommendation is you don't wear contacts in the workplace at all. When I say that, I don't work in an office that much. I'm out in the factory floor. I'm outside, I'm walking around things, moving around. So it's a hard no for contact. Actually, I've been pretty fortunate that I can't put in contacts, that I can't poke myself in the eye. I've tried it. It just doesn't work well for me, and so I don't have that problem. But I strongly encourage people not to wear contacts in any workplace other than the environment of the office environment. Things happen. If you get an arc flash of light, you can dry your eye out in a hurry, which would just about weld that contact
right onto your lens. Yep. And
Well,
I wasn't even thinking necessarily about chemicals and splashes and all of that stuff, but and people wear contacts to work every single day in the construction industry, in all industries. And so I thought it was important to bring up the use of contacts. I don't know a lot of statistics behind them, but I wear contacts. I even did in the shipbuilding, when I was in shipbuilding. It's so easy to get something in your, oh gosh. Anyways, I don't even want to talk about it. It makes my eyes itch right now. Fiberglass. Oh my gosh.
Just one little fiber in there. We can make it clean. You get fiberglass down your shirt or down your, if you're itching like forever.
Oh yeah.
You can't even wash that out in the laundry. That one's just gone.
No kidding.
Anything you want to talk about in the world of training?
I would love to talk about the importance of making training accessible to people with sight impairments, hearing impairments, maybe even the topic of adjusting training for those who are neurodivergent, ADHD, dyslexic. Specifically, I'd love your perspective from instructor-led training, and then I'd love to talk about from the perspective of online development and how online e-learning is changing to be more inclusive.
From the traditional instructor-led model, being sight impaired, not necessarily an issue. The people who are sensitive to loud noises and have I struggle with that because I have the big booming voice, I have the big personality. I move around the room and I know that can be distracting. I've had people in classes a number of times that were auditory impaired. Some of them had hearing aids where they had to ask me to slow pace down, change tone. I've had other ones that needed to have an unobstructed view to read my lips, and those were challenges. Those were a challenge.
I'll say this: what I see is, as hiring continues to be challenging, organizations and trainers alike have to figure out, and let's not just be in the space of, let's talk about office workers as well, because there, yes, you will have people who are sight challenged, visual impairments. And I think different industries have things that they have to adjust for. And as you've mentioned, I will say this: when it comes to online training, truly making learning inclusive means screen reader accessibility for people who are sight or impaired. As we know, everything closed captioning and everything narrated, and limiting overstimulation of content that's flashing, and you probably even have to do this, I would imagine, in your presentations, not just your verbal, how you're presenting verbally, but even what you're showing, right? Being thoughtful about, what did they say? Death by PowerPoint. Oh my gosh. Yes. People used to put, now it's, what's the limit? Like anywhere from 5 words to 25 words is like the max that you want on a slide. Before it just used to be like, oh, they put everything on there and just overwhelmed.
If you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have told you 6 by 6, 6 lines, 6 words. So 36 would be maximum number of words. It's actually less than that.
Oh yeah.
I don't allow more than 4 bullet points on there, and it's just the main thoughts. It might be 1 word or 3-word phrase to trigger the instructor. But I want to be really clear about this, Jen. I have made my entire career out of speaking in public and training. The guy in front of the classroom, the gold standard. And I'm going to here to tell you it's wrong. It's not effective. You remember 10% of what you hear 7 days later. So guess what? 90% of what you paid for is gone. Yet I still get paid to go out and talk to people all over the world. And so I've committed, and it's one of the reasons you and I talk so much and we're engaged in moving forward a different kind of learning, is that learning is dead. We need to do things differently, Unfortunately, it's still the Wild West with different kinds of formats, but to me, the overarching theme is, if training is palatable, feels good, tastes good, smells good, your endorphins are kicking in and you remember much, much more and you want more of it. And the analogy I love to use is if you have a spouse, a child who's playing a video game, and you say dinner is ready, it might be 4 hours before they walk away from the video game, right? Sit in a training class for 10 minutes and count how many people check their phones in the first 10 minutes. You ain't checking your phone when you're playing a video game, So, so changing how we deliver training is huge. I just don't know how to do it yet.
I have all the answers. I'm glad that we're talking. This is what I believe, especially for people that have the blended learning styles, because we all have a blend of learning styles that we actually pull together to create the best learning outcome and the best learning experience. When you can create an experience for someone, and that to me is scenario-based learning. That's why stories are so compelling. That's why you're such a dynamic speaker. That is not dead. But we cannot have Tims running all around this country, the world, teaching and sharing real-time, real emoting these experiences where people can visualize themselves or something similar, right? Because that's where the memory and the recall starts. You've captured someone's heart and their attention. And so how do we replicate your passion, your deep knowledge base? I believe we can do that by creating scenario-based learning. And what I mean by that, I always call it the compliance pieces, right? It's the things you have to know. Don't do this, be this far away, keep yourself safe by tying off here. You have to have those goals. All of that information is a requirement. Now, how do you tie that into daily work? So you talk about palatable. I talk about the opposite of that around the experience. Does it look like, sound like, and feel like daily work? So again, we're bringing in these senses, right? To when somebody says that's a little bit more realistic, I can relate to that. You've already got them. They're paying attention. Now, when you can tie in the compliance piece with the experience, looks like, sounds like, feels like, unsafe or safe, and people start using decision-making, critical thinking, problem-solving skills. They've got to think beyond the right answer to how does this impact me? How can I think about this differently? We're starting to build what we call total worker safety. We just happen to be able to use some of the gamification, some of the gaming components, and then yes, VR as the cherry on top. But being able to attract that learner in a way that emotionally connects them to something that is reflective of their daily work. I mean, you're already
immersing them in the environment virtually.
Yeah.
Jen, this could literally be an hour-long conversation the next time we meet.
Let's do it.
Thank you for joining us for Safety Unlocked. Follow us on social media at Exceed Safety for more engaging and informative safety content. And be sure to share this podcast with a colleague or fellow safety enthusiast. In need of safety services? Exceed Safety is a full-spectrum safety consulting firm offering services nationwide. Visit exceedsafety.com to learn more about what we do and how we can help. We're your partners in safety, today, tomorrow, and always.